Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you for the introduction, and good evening, everybody. As it was said by Paco, it's the first time that I do this lecture because it's of a piece of work that is still in progress, and it could be premature. But I think that giving your lecture series, and do I need to advance the screen with this or from there? I'm sorry, the advance from here, from there. As I was saying, the reason why I perhaps rushed to do this lecture is because the lecture series that you are organizing, where the politics is very important, as it is, of course, as it befits the times when we're living, the desire with change, the desires for change, and all these situations in which we all encounter these days at ourselves. This lecture has to do very much with politics. This is the title which I given to it. It's about the making of a campus for a new university in Vietnam. And I will do something very unusual that I haven't done before, is which give you a very extensive presentation of the process that led to the design and the construction of this campus, because that's where you can see politics in action, where you can see how things get in fact done, and all the factors that influence that. This university is after some kind of pedagogical invention. You will see that more about later, because they are doing something quite daring, and they're working with together with German universities. And very much there is a cultural politics in Vietnam that it's trying to help the development of a new class of younger people with great deal of knowledge on science and technology. Vietnam has a very young population, and there is not a long tradition of university education there. So these attempts to produce the science and the technicians of the future. The university in question is called Vietnamese-German University. and I should describe exactly who are the actors of this situation. The government of Vietnam, more precisely the Ministry of Education, at some point back in the early 21st century, decided to joint venture, shall we say, with two universities, two groups of universities in Europe. For the humanities, they made a contract with a consortium of French universities, and that they operated as the Vietnamese-French University. With Germany, more precisely with the state of Hessen, they made a similar pact, and whereby people from Hessen will design the institution, the curriculum, and that they will move to Vietnam to teach, and then they will be teaching together, and so forth. So in that way, then a new university, with a new pedagogy, will begin to develop there. There is the problem for the architects, as you can see already, as you can imagine, maybe not, is that both of them, the German tradition and the Vietnamese one, need somehow to be represented or present in the design of the campus. So that is, in fact, quite a chore. There is a third main important actor in this situation, and it is the World Bank. The World Bank produces has given a loan to the government of Vietnam to build this campus, and they have kept an overseeing capacity all along the process. About this presentation itself, I should say that it's going to be very chronological, absolutely chronological. It's been 7 years long. We began to work on this in 2013. We are about to finish the construction of the first phase, which is about 90 buildings. And I think it's probably like a narrative of a professional adventure. And I think it's right to call it an adventure, because when we began, we didn't know what we're going to find and how it's going to end. There were many, many unknowns, some of them frightening, for instance, just having the capacity to do it. And in fact, it's think as sometimes hazardous, and but the results are right now rewarding. It has been somehow an adventure. I insist on that word because I think it's right. Graphically, this presentation was rather messy. I mean, there's all sorts of drawings, concept drawings, renderings, and a lot of technical drawings. It's going to be a very static presentation. Nothing moves in it. Because it's the material that we have, and it's not really, it's working material. In fact, it's pretty rough in that sense, graphically speaking. There are videos. There are many videos that show the process of construction. Those can be seen in social media. If you look in the usual platforms, and you will find them there. But I decided not to include them in this presentation. So first, I will describe this university that, as I said, it began to be developed in 2008, 5 years before we were involved. And essentially, it's been operating since the beginning in a variety of buildings in downtown Saigon. Saigon is no longer the name of the whole city. The city is Ho Chi Minh City. Saigon is now the name of the old colonial central district. And the university then they began renting buildings there, and then they used some buildings in a different campus in Vietnam. This is where they have been located for a number of years, and this is the kind of buildings they have. It's very interesting to see the typologies of buildings they use. There are plenty of courtyard situations. It's mostly ground and 3 or 4 stories. They are very sturdy, strong buildings with no frills, no nonsense buildings. Budget has always been extremely tight, as is the case with our design. And air conditioning is used very little because it is expensive, and consequently, natural ventilation and cross ventilation, windows, and all of those old-fashioned devices that are so effective continue to be part of the life of the campus. The important spaces, as you can see on the left, for instance, that is a classroom, is open air. And shaded and protected from the torrential rains they have practically on a daily basis. In fact, these buildings, the ones they have and the ones that we're making, they will be perfect post-pandemic buildings, or because in fact they rely on all the tenants of cross ventilation and small, larger sizes. They're very generous buildings, so they will be adapted very well from the conditions we are suffering. On the right, you see housing, the typical student housing. The use of color in the housing blocks is prevailing, and it's a way of distinguishing buildings from buildings. I should also describe also what characterizes, I imagine, the BGU is a very it's a university that depends directly from the Ministry of Education of Vietnam. Consequently, there is a great deal of procedural protocols, a very large bureaucracy, but at the same time, decision-making is very hierarchical and pyramidal. Consequently, once a decision is made, it stays, and to obtain the approval is quite simple. Because the client is in a way very simple. It's just the Ministry of Education.
Rodolfo,
yes.
Apparently, we can't see. Oh, now I see another slide, but I don't know if anybody else can see what you were talking about. But for a while, I could only see the first slide.
Oh, well, that's a problem. That really is an issue.
We're on the right slide right now.
Now I see one that says Description of Consortium of Technical German Universities.
Yes, that is on the screen right now.
Okay, all right.
But did you see the description of the buildings of VGU
No,
now?
I didn't. I don't know. No, okay. We did not.
Oh. Well, perhaps I should go back and without,
Okay.
so you see the images I was referring to? Well, that's the problem. Jamie, can we go back and let's begin to the origin. We go to the. Did you see this?
Yep. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Have you seen this slide before?
No, I haven't.
They haven't.
No.
This is the first time you see this?
Yes.
My goodness. So, but you hear what I was saying? Well, so try to put together the words with the images now. And I'm sorry they were not simultaneous. I had no idea that you were not seeing what I was advancing. I described the actors, essentially the consortium of universities. This was a lot of words without image. And then I described, have you seen this? Where the university began to work in downtown Ho Chi Minh City, which is to say in Saigon, for its first 5 years, and the buildings they rented in somebody else's campus, and the typologies of those buildings and the character of those spaces. And I made a reference to cross ventilation, natural ventilations, and the most important spaces in Vietnam is not the interior room and it's not the outdoor garden, it's the in-between. It's things that are roofed, protected from sun and rain, but open. Those spaces are very important. All right, I will continue now with describing the technical universities. They are all clustered around Frankfurt. There are 6 of them, and Darmstadt is one of the most important ones. And you see here the view of campuses of technical universities where in fact it's good to see which type of campus these institutions have. Darmstadt, above all, most important because it's directly involved with the Vietnamese-German university. This is the Darmstadt campus. Do you see the images now? Are they advancing? Are you seeing the Darmstadt campus?
Yes.
They are? All right. I should now introduce a group of architects, a firm, if you wish to called Phase 1, which I will translate in English as Phase 1. This is a group of architects and planners and landscape architects that consult for governments, cities, large corporations, more often for the public realm. They deal with the organization of competitions. In this presentation, to me, there are 2 levels of politics that you have to, I guess I'm alluding to. First, there is the macro level, that is to say the cultural politics of the country. There deals with European universities in order to form a class of technicians that they do not have. And then there's another level, which is at the level only of within the culture of architecture, the politics of the culture of architecture, and how then these processes, like the one I'm going to describe, begin. Phase 1 then is this German consultants that is called in by the government of Vietnam to help them organize an international competition for the new campus. And they have plenty of experience. And what these people do, they do many things. They are programmers. They organize. They present architects for shortlisting. They help to decide on the shortlist. They build exhibitions around the programs. They also advise them on site selections, so on and so forth. So this is the group of technical people that helps the government to develop an international competition. At the starting of the process, I mean, we received, of course, a typical request for proposals, as the one you are seeing here, very detailed. extensively detailed. This was international. I guess this was sent to about 50 firms around the world. And we submitted qualifications, for instance, with great emphasis on campus design. This is a page from our submittal where you see a campus for the University of California in San Francisco that is implemented, and the campus at Princeton University, where I personally worked for many years, adding a number of buildings and master planning their growth. That, I guess, got us in the short list. At the beginning, it was not, at the beginning there was a list of 6 architects, of which we are part. Some of the other architects were very much with around the 2007, when this happens, was called the Star Architects, very well known, the most famous architects of the times. But later on, when they realized what the requirements were and how numerous and large and complex they were, and what the remuneration for that competition, what the honorarium for the competition was, in a way changed our minds, and the list of competitors was redefined by the ministry and its advisors into a different kind of group. We received from them not a book, but many electronic documents, such as one of these, with all sorts of information about their background and their programs, aspirations, so on and so forth. We began to research this. We faced this competition almost with fear, because at that time the office was not very large, and we put together an excellent group of about, since at the beginning of about 6 people, then expanded to be 12, 15 at the competition at large. Of course, the regular analysis of climate conditions in Vietnam. We are in this situation here, and it's of course tropical and monsoons and plenty of heat, humidities, and torrential rains on a daily basis. The vernacular architecture was revised. There are very beautiful things. Remember that Vietnam was a country under Chinese domination for centuries, and then became a French colony. And so their vernacular, in a way, reflects also somehow the influence of the people that were, in fact, governing or occupying Vietnam at that time. The French tradition left behind monumental buildings, avenues, boulevards, and parks, and the classical tradition of architecture, which is very much liked by everybody there. Some typologies, like the courtyard diagrams, courtyard public buildings, were very popular during the French Mandate. But of course, the Vietnamese added to that color. Everything there is colorful, and what this building that in Paris would have been beige, here is radically yellow, and which makes for a very interesting effect, I imagine. Of course, we began to research the academic buildings in Germany, because they wanted to, that culture wanted to be represented in the cake too, beginning with, of course, with Bauhaus and the type of buildings that Germany continues to develop in that tradition thereafter. A great deal of analysis on the program, more importantly, analysis of laboratories, because it's a technical university with many laboratories of all different kinds, for all the engineers, and we had never built a laboratory before, so research was very much mandatory. And of course, revising the history of campus design. What you have, this is a European tradition in its 2 versions, the English sort of more campus-oriented, and in the left, and on the right, the Sorbonne, which is in fact a palatial building by itself, inserted in the middle of the city. Of the city surroundings. The American campuses from the 19th century on. This is the typology that defined the idea of campus. You see there the Harvard and Princeton. And in the end, we look at all that, but what we are doing is in fact a combination and a development of those traditions, plus something else that we put in, which is our interpretation of what academia in Vietnam today should look like. It was difficult to organize a very large team. We depended directly from the ministry, and the most important thing is to work with on the center here, Huang Xiang, a local architect, a very good young female-owned office, which is not common in Vietnam. And on the right, Grant Associates, landscape architects with plenty of experience in Southeast Asia, and of course Arup, and for all of mechanical and technical things. So we put together a superb team with top consultants in the world, all of them with the base somehow either in Southeast Asia. Our team, I was in charge of that essentially, and this is with ourselves in the office at the moment. Jeffrey Bircher, which is now a firm in our firm, had a very important role in this, and so did Sei Kim, that was the project manager, now an associate in our office. The design concept takes inspiration from many things. The landscape of Vietnam, when you visit Vietnam, I mean, the nature is very strong, and makes a very impressive. I mean, it's overwhelming in a way in its presence. The landscape of Vietnam, what is remarkable is the lushness and the intensity of this landscape, be that in a more natural condition, as you just saw, or more in a sort of gardenesque, or developed, more manicured condition. This is about the location. In gray is on the left, Ho Chi Minh City. North of it, a new province, Binh Duong province, which is north of the airport. You can see the airport here, and our site, the competition site in the province. That leads then to the necessity to study the master plan for the new town, of which this campus will be the central piece. And you see in red the site of facing a major artery, and then a cut through a drainage canal that cuts through the site. That is the site itself, and it looks like this. Very generic. It could be anywhere. That avenue could be there or could be in Houston. It's very nice to see this picture now and to see what happened only 5 years after, when most of the new town is built around, and a view of the canal that cuts through. So in these graphics, you see that when the campus is complete, it should have about 12,000 students. The gross floor area for buildings, the site here, which is about 50 hectares, and very little, almost none automobiles. There are very few cars compared to what we would do here in America, for instance, and of course many motorbikes, for which is storage throughout. So those are the requirements. We then began deciding to make a campus that was dense as possible. Density is very good because it produces economy of means, infrastructural economies of distance, the self-shade, the shading of buildings, buildings shading buildings, which is of course very good over there. And also we decided to somehow raise those buildings, put it on a continuous garden, and organize it rather formally around a center. The idea of making, above all, I was very much fixated on the idea of making a campus that it is like if it were a very large building on the landscape or on the ground. This image of the Escorial in Spain more or less alludes to the kind of campus as building that we were interested in developing. As you see in the plan, is an amalgamation of typologies for different functions. This palace is just a palace. It contains, of course, a church and military areas and libraries, so on and so forth. So it's also multifunctional. The idea of the building, the campus as building, as one building on the city, it's dear to us. I mean, this is a personal reference to the kind of buildings that I am prone to like, and the kind of ideas. This is the buildings of the University of Buenos Aires in Argentina, my alma mater. And if you see, again, Argentina is being a country that with the same difficulties, with the budgetary difficulties, supposed and technological limitations that Vietnam has, with a restricted palette of materials. And so these buildings, very sturdy, very large, very strong, and clear and rational, somehow have always been present in my mind. This is old buildings, Catalano in the 60s. And even contemporary buildings in Argentina, like a new university recently built, maintain the same thing. So I have to say personally that these buildings are important in, I guess, in the evolution of my, I guess, taste somehow. And above all, there is a parallel because with Vietnam because of the technology. These buildings are concrete and aluminum and glass and ceramics, and that is the buildings that you can build in Vietnam, and no others. So the building, this campus wants to be a building, and be being compact. At the same time, the campus wants to distinguish the buildings to be distinguished among themselves. There is a kind of difficult moment in between wanting to have a campus as building. At the same time, in that building should include variety from building to building. And I think that's where the professional or the intellectual interest also lies, because it's a new problem. How do you make then something building-like, but it's not linguistically homogeneous, or it has a variety of images and characters according to the different functions of those buildings. So that to me is a new architectural problem, and we rejoice on that. So the question of densifying that, not utilizing the whole site, leaving site is green here for future development. And above all, imagining a continuous garden underneath the landscape of Vietnam, the typology, the ecologies of Vietnam turn into garden, and lifting the buildings up, making the buildings on pilotis, and making then that floor, the ground floor, solely dedicated to student life. You will see that more later. In this diagram here, it's also important to note that all the buildings in white are connected by a continuous canopy. It's 4 meters high above the ground, absolutely relentless in white plaster, and it's a continuous then canopy that makes the space between the garden and that roof the student zone par excellence. This is then the systems we use. I mean, the most traditional modular structural systems, very, very simple and efficient typologies. And allow ourselves then special building forms for different programs. For instance, this one is a congregation hall, and this is a sports building. And then for the facades, to have more or less a continuous type of treatment, simple fenestration and screens, but then with variation according to function. There are hundreds of these things, graphics, I mean, ways in which we began to imagine. Here it's important to see the canopy of the elliptical thing that defines the commons, the center of campus, stretching and pulling together every point on campus, so you can always walk under a continuous canopy. I would say that perhaps the most difficult moment to organize this lecture is the selection of the material, because 7 years of work, all sorts of phases, and 20 buildings being built simultaneously, the amount of material is just terribly complex, and clean up that and selecting is not easy. So as I said, I mean, this is what it is. There is a ground layer, and with very simple structural road system. The ground level for students, and then the canopy is in red, the continuous canopy, the buildings themselves on top, mostly 3 to 4 stories. This is the figure ground of that campus. You begin to see the canal traversing that, and the first floor plan. This is the ground level plan. Essentially, there is a main point of entrance from the front avenue. In this moment, there is an arrival plaza. There is parking on the side. And then the buildings within the grid are these. The corners are very important, and then there are buildings outside the grid, which are buildings that have to do with the community. This one is an exhibition hall, and exhibition and places for interaction with the local industry that the technologies being developed on campus can have access to, and then residential housing on the side. At the end of it, the campus left as it is. There is a retention pool, and wild animals used to be still there until quite recently. This is then the canopy that connects buildings, and I should then tell you that after that I would like to begin with the presentation. Once we developed the concept, the presentation consisted of sending all of these boards. There were 14 of them, very large, and which I will give you a glance at what they are. I will not describe right now the buildings, but later on. But it gives you then an idea of the level of planning and urban design development, infrastructural design, phasing, and program distribution, of course, and all those issues that they were required from this campus. A book was sent. Besides the drawings, there were books with a great variety of information about building specifications and cost analysis. A model was made. You can see it here. The moment was finished on time, put in a big case, and sent it to Vietnam. And the happy model makers, they are rejoicing that it's going away. And after that, a few days after sending the model, we were notified that we had won the competition. A contract was sent, very cumbersome because it was sent in Vietnamese. I mean, all the things need to be translated. And they require many copies. This is an example of the workings of the Vietnamese bureaucracy, and each page of them needs to be signed personally by me. So we organized an event where I sat down there, and an assistant was moving the pages, and after many hours of signing, and the contract was sent to them. After that, there was a trip for a kickoff meeting, and then this is in Vietnam, in the present building of the university. On center is the German professor that presides over VGU, and then people from the various consultants and teams that we have. At that time, this is a good indication of how things work there. On the left, you see the Ministry of Education addressing ourselves and the crowd, and more importantly, next to him, this lady in charge of South Asian relations for the World Bank, and next to her, the person of the World Bank assigned to oversee the development of this project. On the right, we have the minister. I just have received the commission bound in nice red leather, and the process began. I would also add there, they unveil in an exhibition the 5 projects that had won that had participated, with some of them which we didn't know the architects ourselves. Ours is, of course, you can see by now on the left, and the other projects. The other projects are coming from as you see, ourselves from the USA. There are two German Deutsche Republic firms. Japan is presented, so is Austria. So this is the set, and these are the projects that were made. I will not comment on the projects. I don't know them very well at all, more than these kind of things. So they just to give you an idea of what it has. The site, in all of its complexities, and of topography, because even though it's flat, it has a number of hydraulic issues and problems that were resolved by our consultants. A typology left there, which I found very attractive, was a typical house of a Vietnamese farm, which is something that we took as an inspiration for some project later on, some part of campus. And celebrations ensue and follow, and on the left, the celebration of our team and its local consultants, and over there, you see with the university itself. This is with the president of the university, so on and so forth. Awards follow that, and in 2015, and the first phase then began to be designed. It was established that we will build about 20 buildings on the first phase, while the whole campus is about between 40 and 50 buildings. This is what we presented in 2013. There were many comments and changes happen, and by 2014, these are the changes that were done. More importantly, we switched the location of at the center of campus. This was the turtle here, is the exhibition, the congregation hall, and then there's an L-shaped library. And then this became a library on the kind of, hexagonal shape close to laboratories, which are here, and the congregation hall closer to the area of dormitories and classroom buildings. Of that, another redesign, simplifying things because of problems of budget, and essentially arrived of the first building at the first phase, and this is what is being built, and this is what I will try to describe to you now as synthetic as I can, but as I said, it's plenty of material. So this is the first phase. It should have been done by November 2020. We are a little bit behind. The process was not very uneven, and the client took a great deal of time in between the approval of the process and the beginning of the construction time. There were many negotiations there, and so the time for building it is being shortened. And in less than a year, this should be perhaps occupied now. The site seen from the air. You see the grid of the new town being planned around towards the south. It's an existing old hamlet that is becoming now a little town, and the canal cutting through, of course. So this is the plan of the first phase. I will describe the entry plaza, administration building here, follow off campus, symbolically, let's say, by the exhibition hall, and then the main buildings, dormitories on the left, a dining hall facing the ellipse, laboratories on the right, classroom buildings on the south, and then the sports facilities and the physical plant, utility plant. This is what you are going to see now. The construction began, the design was put in, and we attended the groundbreaking, very festive, as always there. You see line up there the tracks ready to bulldoze that were choreographed into were called the dance of tracks, with drums and all the other celebratory moments. And it was a very happy occasion, as it always groundbreakings are. And that's the event. This is a series of drawings that describe the facing, this is construction facing. First, on the top infrastructure. And then you can see here then the advantages of working with a compact, dense grid. These are in red, the buildings to be built first, and the administration, exhibition hall, and utilities. And then later, the buildings that were added, which is the library, the entry portico, the ceremony hall, dining hall, and classrooms. All in all, then we will arrive at the end to the red figure ground at the end. At the beginning, there were some events. The excavation began, and a bomb from remnant of the American War, as it's called in Vietnam, were found that were promptly decommissioned. And then once it was clear of bombs, the construction of the infrastructure began. And together with that, what happened with the buffaloes? They left. The buildings now, I will begin to describe these buildings one by one. Administration first. You see there in red, with the red circle, which I will use in all of these plans, so you won't get lost. Essentially, it's a building that has parking at the ground level, enclosed secure parking, and a first floor of offices, and then when it builds up, it converts itself into a courtyard diagram of offices, and it has a top that houses the president's office and the alumni club. So this is a plan of the first level. Essentially, you have access to parking from the perimeter infrastructure. There are 4 cores, and then central elevators. Since you can read plans, you're all architects, I will not take much time going into details, but then this is the second level, which is almost like the ground for this building, with the courtyard and the 2 cores, and then offices around it. This is self-explanatory, and the other floors. And then this is the space that is produced. Open corridors, great deal of shading provided by the structure with the upper administration offices, a courtyard surrounded by corridors and shades. This kind of, all these buildings share this kind of typological simplicity, which made them also very efficient, and above all, according to budget. There is a sense of realism that pervades the design of these buildings, and acceptance of conditions and of limitations by the transformation of that into something better, one hopes, and richer. But without that, we would have not won this competition, and without that approach, it would have not been possible to build it. So we were once again extremely pragmatic in the choice of strategies and the limitations of the building palette. This pedestrian bridge is all important because it's the building entrance to the building. It's the entrance to the building coming from campus. On the right, you see there the laboratories, the laboratory areas from where you go ascend to the campus. In the head, there are the faculty, the dean's offices in the corner here. And upstairs, there are, as I say, it's like a club, it's an alumni club with reception rooms and this and that, also quite flexible. This is the view of campus from the president's office. You see the laboratories on the left, and then the rest of buildings over there. It's a very simple building, cast concrete panels and metal grills for the parking area, planted. All that, given the speed of growth of nature in Vietnam, it will be a green piece of topiary. You will never imagine that it is parking inside. Details are very basic, and as I said, to fit details and all of the other realities of the moment. And this is the way you see that then from laboratories. And now I have a moment of, have a series of construction shots that describe the building quite clearly. This is the bridge on the foreground, the pedestrian bridge on the axis that give access to the portico. and the bridge connecting that to laboratories. The building itself, the use of color to identify cores, very much the palette, the vernacular buildings of Vietnam. And now I will describe the all-important combination of the central buildings, which are the library, the portico, and the ceremony hall. They are buildings that, in a way, they have been put together, the three of them, in such a way that they make one building. In the same way in which, at a large scale, the campus want to behave like a building, this ensemble of three buildings wants to behave as one building. There are some advantages to that, and some strange things which don't happen in other campuses, and which I value, and because of their difference. Seriously or not, I think rather seriously, I follow the way in which in German the new concepts are named in German language by the making of super long words, each of which stands for a significant part of the name. So to me, it's no longer a combination. It's a suite of three buildings, but it's one large building, which I like to call, or we like to call, then with this kind of compounded situation here. It's an old story for us. Back in 1987, we tried to make a campus center for Carnegie Mellon. We follow a similar technique and of aggregation of typologies, and not just adjacency, but more violently, as this in the case of the Vietnam thing, the way in which one typology deforms the other by making a new whole. It's something that we like to explore. So I will show you first images derived from the pedestrian bridge. You see what happens. The portico in a way cuts through, chops off the head of the other two, left and right, and makes this a cause for a very interesting situation. The buildings, in fact, appear almost like as if they were screens, because their interior life is exposed and close with a plane of glass to the portico itself. All the buildings on campus, with the great majority, with the exception of the ceremony hall, have moments of entrance which are not doors in the vertical plane, but doors on the horizontal plane, carvings on the first slab where the first staircase arrives, and then you enter the building always on center and always from below and up, not from the side. That is the prevailing thing. And that is what the continuous garden and the continuous covered open spaces lead to. So this is the ground level of those buildings. I will describe those two buildings, the three buildings later. And right now, a few words then about the ensemble. This is the upper level and the roof plan of that. Drawings of elevations. I told you that in this presentation, some things are ugly because they are work in drawing. This is a very early, the moment of the design. You see the way in which these two glass planes apply to the sectioned buildings, cut buildings, define the portico, and beyond you see the elliptical thing, and then the buildings as they are built from a drone across the campus. Do notice how the city has grown around it already, with essentially housing blocks about 6 stories tall and very, very long, which produce a very good background for our buildings. This is the entry bridge towards the plaza. And then you see the columns at the corners of the portico beginning to be placed, and then the portico structure. The scale is very monumental. And this little thing in yellow here is a person. That gives you an idea of the size and the importance of the moment of entrance to the campus, with the library on the left and the ceremony hall on the other side. This is the way of describing conceptually what these buildings are. And now I will focus on the library. As I said, the most important thing is what is all of this here that is with light beige, which is covered, protected, open space, 4 meters tall for a student life, and point of entrance and the landing, of course, and things that need to be on the ground, which are very minimal, like storage for bicycles and things. The main entrance is this staircase that you can access for 4 points. There is a moment of there is a landing, and then you proceed up to the building itself. So this is the way it grows. You see there the staircase arriving to center. The second floor plan, the moment of arrival. They have a very densely packed program on center, and then more student life and library reading rooms around it. You will see that later on. This is sorry. At the corner here, overlooking the portico on top, there is then what we call a theater reading room, a space which you for performance and also for reading, quite unique in a library. The door, so-called, to the library is here, this moment, when you arrive and enter into reception. And then the reading rooms around the building, we visit outside. It's a rendering of that performance space there, or reading room. The spaces that happens between offices and stacks and the building skin. My computer is a little bit overwhelmed. This is the the third floor plan. They open to above the central courtyard. Let's say it's covered, as you will see in a moment, but covered but open. So there's a chimney, in fact, a ventilation chimney in the very center space of the library. The brise-soleil is cast concrete shading devices, effectively done to really shade it. You can see it here in this drawing of the reading rooms, the main volume where the stacks are, and the stacks, and another view of the spaces in between. As I said, some drawings are very ugly. This is one of them. There are quite a few. I should go very fast, but the computer takes time to load. And then this is the way it was presented to them for approval. Sections. You see, it's important to note the central chimney, where the roof flies above it, but it's open all around. So you have a ventilation effect on the center of campus, on the center of the building. Details of and the scale of those brise-soleils in the section over there. The connection to the central ellipse. You see the shadows on the ground, and then seen from the center, the campus itself, with the portico and the building taking form. In the background of the building, you see one of the laboratories here at the right. This is the entrance to the building. That square, that black rectangular piece is in fact the door. The staircase arriving to the central courtyard, which is painted red. The spaces between the skin and that. And the construction of the acoustic treatment over the small theater there. And a photography of that. We were very lucky and happy with the level of construction of the cast concrete panels. The best industries in Southeast Asia, which are many wonderful, are not in Vietnam. So this is local construction and very good quality. And you see it in context. And now we will move to this building that is self-explanatory. It has 4 main entrances, one on each side. The main one, of course, overlooking the entry court or portico, and storage and things and bathrooms and storage around. Is prepared for what do I do? Some computer fatigue, perhaps. I hope you're not as fatigued as the computer is. Ways of organizing the space. In fact, it's a multi-use flat floor space that can be accommodate a variety of events. Should I use this to advance? Or? The balcony above, very important because it has allows for the congregation of people all around it. And the terrace then, which is in fact a lobby terrace or lounge, in fact, with a big glass window overlooking the space of the portico and beyond the reading space of the library. I'm sorry, I wish I could go much faster, but the computer is not letting me advance as I want. The structural design of the roof of the turtle. And there you have it. This is some months ago. It's a very large space. Everything in this campus is very big somehow. And you see a track inside, give you an idea of the scale. And its relation then to the ellipse. The outer skin of the roof is metal. And I will describe now the dining hall. There are two of them, the one we're building now and an equal one on the other side of the ellipse in relation to the laboratories. It's like this is more or less where you are during the day and this one is more or less where you are during the night, because that's where the dormitories are. Is this building here and encircled. And this is precedent. This is the typical way in which communal dining halls are in Vietnam, always open to the air, always with plenty of fans and never air conditioning. They're beautiful spaces. It's a typology that their specific weather conditions allow them to enjoy. So the building the dining hall is open. See the pattern of columns there, which is intentionally non-regular. The serving for the kitchen and other facilities in the back. The mezzanine has, the second floor has another dining hall that is fully open, and on top is the only enclosed dining hall and at the top of the building. Sections. And then it's a drawing here it's an engineering drawing. Engineering drawings love to cut sections through columns, which is not what architects tend to do. So it gives you this very difficult reading of a space that in fact is the same open space that continues up the staircases and connects to the lower level. This is the plan of the structure of the very large columns. And a detail of that, which I think is quite beautiful. And again, as in the case of the library, there is a skin, a bristle, but it's made up with some kind of synthetic wood. You see the panels here, and then there is a diminishing in plan of this paneling, so it produces a kind of fluting effect in the screen itself. The rendering and that space. You see I do very much like the viewing of this sort of landscape of buildings on the side here with the ceremony hall and the others popping up, and then the presence, the ever presence of the canopy. And then this is before the screen is mounted. Contraction of those things, scale and size. And now I describe a dormitory. One of them, you see it here in red. Process of the dormitories. We could have some formal work with the shape of the roof and distribute the occupancy in such a way that we got a higher point where we locate a lounge and terraces for students. and for everyday, a kind of student ground for meetings with students at the building top, and the local colors, and the production of shadows on all openings. This is mandatory. A plan of the first floor. There are 4 cores, staircases. Only 2 of them have elevators, as you can see. And these are student support rooms, security center for the dormitories, and the student lounge. And what you see here is all the storage for bicycles and motorcycles, which every dormitory has. And then these open air, open study areas on the ground level, which is, I think, what every campus is looking for in America these days, at least the ones where the weather allows for that. It's extremely dense. The questions of the density in Vietnam is culturally determined. It's radically different from density in North America. They are used to proximity of bodies and high density. You see the way the units are fairly small. They're narrow, bathroom always at the entrance. A way of occupying that by 3 students. Each of them gets a small closet. The students there do not have electronic equipment in their rooms. They have very little things, just clothing. And 2 rooms, 2 bedrooms or 1. And very important is this yellow balcony, which is also functions as a smoking room and a place where you can dry your clothes. And of course, there is no air conditioning. So the character of life is very different from what we're used to. This is the way the buildings are organized. 1 elevation. In the end, we settled for some kind of cast concrete grill to enclose those balconies with clothing, and staircases are, of course, open to the air for cross ventilation. So the building is, in fact, very porous, even though it's a large mass. And you see a student in one of those terraces overlooking the quad. They all around spaces. And this is a building that we didn't get built. It's the only thing that they did not approve, which is this vernacular construction here in the middle of the residential quarters. This building is something that we added to the program. I didn't know that the program had truly contractual value and that you cannot deviate from it, subtract or add absolutely nothing. So this was a kind of, in our minds, given the situation of the student life, where it's so dense and impossible to have any kind of life of your own, that there could be a building where students could do whatever they please. In fact, it's just rooms with equipment for cooking and with some minimal bathrooms, and it's open to the air. It's a shed. It's a building for student life. That didn't go well. It was very much like this. This is a vernacular one. That's the way it was. I imagine it was too, uncontrolled for the mores of the institution. These are the dormitories then again. And you see here everything more or less I have described. I will go now to the last building on the ellipse, which is the first phase of the education building. It's a classroom building. Remember that this building will extend all the way around here and constitute the edge of the center of campus. This is the building. Right now it's 4 blocks. This is the way it's organized. It's just classrooms and nothing else but classrooms of different sizes and shapes and conditions. This is the way I look at the moment of the competition. The pattern of window here on the right is the dining hall you just saw. And this building then at the ground level, you see at the beginning of the major staircase going up to 2nd level, a ramp again going up to the 2nd level, major two staircases and elevators, 2 cores of elevators, and some minor bathroom facilities. These rooms are wrecked, and the important thing is here what is in white, which is all of this, which is a student life, that given the density of this campus is really very important. It will be furnished with benches and things, and there will be bicycles and spontaneous things of that student life requires. The second floor, the same story, more or less. There is an important terrace here, which will be planted in pots, not on the roof. The way in which the rake floors, the raked classrooms connect the ground level to the first floor. Further up, you get different types of facilities and different types, larger ones above. And there's an elevation of that building. And it turned out to be in the end a metal building. Here it's all enclosed with the same mesh. And the largest staircase facing the sports field in the south is shown here. Elevations, the renderings from the point of competition, and the construction process of that. And Vietnam has very strong, I mean, this is a monsoon area, so everything is structurally braced for buildings, for winds of very fast and violent and destructive winds. You see construction of this building. This one is very much like the house-like figure of this building that houses learning. The back towards the south. And then you see the campus there. The laboratories are all very much the same type and the same type of organization, but they're all very, very different. They are different according to which, there are differences that have to do with which kind of engineering is there. And it's, of course, the location vis-a-vis the rest of campus. This is the rendering of the lawn between laboratories, which is zigzag by pedestrian circulation covered by a canopy. The last moment of that zigzagging line is the bridge to administration that goes over the canal. This is the view of the main campus, laboratories quad. Ground level plans. They all have a courtyard, and most of them have a very large workshop room in the ground level with direct access from very heavy equipment and things from the service road in the back. This is the room I was describing, where it's essentially almost factory-like, that allows them to innovate and construct things and move around very heavy things, engines and whatever it is that they're working on. Normally, around the courtyard, we have these kind of things, offices of all kinds, and the main staircase. There are two staircases back to back that function as one monumental staircase. And there is terraces where photovoltaic things are installed. You see here a view of the courtyards. The ever-present ground plane of this campus, which I think is the most important feature of that defines the campus, is the continuous garden. And this is seen from administration. So you see there are variations. They're all modern buildings. They're all modern variations of the same language, but they are distinctive, and they all try to represent the function that they house. That's why they're different. That would refer that as realism. The facades are they are still without applying the facade treatment that shades the windows. The garden staircases, which are of course open to the elements, like everything else. And then you see the rest of the laboratories here from the ellipse. And this is the view of campus. Very, very, very rapidly, the sports hall at the end, which is the last stop of the canopy by now. Later on, with the phase 2 of the education building is built, there will be another canopy that will connect directly to this building here of sports. This one terminates in open space. The canopy will connect, here is on the left. It's two buildings under one roof. One building has the very big facilities, and the other one has the changing room, restrooms, and offices. It has a pool, and this is the second floor, where weight rooms and training rooms are there too. And it's a typical sports type of building with a shed roof reminiscent of gyms in any way, going back to this question of realism, and grays overlooking the tracks. You see here a view, that. The main space, they're very good at some sports. And that, of course, they would like to be. Soccer, of course. And this is the canopy, at the end of the canopy overlooking the tracks and the building itself. There it is. Very briefly, the physical plant utilities. Regrettably, we lost the water tower. The water tower was truly important formally to mark the corners of the square, which of the basic campus object that I was referring to at the beginning. Current technologies for water does not necessitate towers anymore. Things are going underground, so we lost a good chance to mark a corner. But this is the way it is. Technology changes. Essentially, there is a service yard with many buildings. You see this water potable and non-potable water are underground, and the pump station is not tall, so there was no possibility of marking that corner formally anymore. And it's a very simple building. In here we have worked with brick. Masonry is also a possibility there, and well done. They do have very good labor and careful labor for making open walls of this nature or pattern walls of that nature. So outside the center of campus, there are two buildings that have to do with the industry, one of them, and with the residential housing, the other. For the industry, again another shed type of building. Allows for exhibitions outside and inside, and those exhibition spaces are very flexible. They can accommodate all sorts of industry shows or events or galas or any kind of social activity that may be required. The presence of course, the roof, the ever-present shading of that, and the making of outdoor spaces, and the view of the building from the entrance. Towards the right, you begin to see faculty housing. Faculty housing suffered one of the most extreme reductions in budget. Very few units are being built now, and they're very simple elementary buildings. This is the pattern. The landscape will do wonders to them because trees will improve the quality of this facility and very much will make the communal green a reality, other kind of an abstraction here as it is shown there. But you know, this building was supposed to be taller, for instance, but in fact things get better when it's aggregated. The freestanding buildings are not really as interesting as they could have been. At the end, this is not really a conclusion because the work is not finished. One can only conclude something when the things are done, when the continuous garden is built and inhabited, and when the students are there and when learning is taking place. Let's remember that this is also supposed to be a model university. That is to say, the Ministry of Education is in search of how to do a campus for the new Vietnam in contemporary Vietnam, taking into account all of their culturally specific conditions. We sincerely hope that this campus will be that there are here patterns and ideas and elements that can be taken up by somebody else and transform and become then a kind of way of doing a campus in the region. We look at this building now as a very rewarding. The adventure that began with many unknowns, I think is going to have a very happy ending. We're very close to that. It's been very rewarding to see this grow. It's been extremely difficult to deal meetings and 12 hours different time zone, where one has to have a very large meeting in Vietnamese with simultaneous translation at midnight, for instance. So there were very low moments for ourselves because the sheer difficulty of implementation of this. But as I say, in the end, I hope it will be fine. Let's hope for the best. I hope, I've been trying to show then the working of politics in the making of space learning. At the macro level, that is to say, relations between the countries and between ministries and conglomerations of other universities, and also at the level of the politics of architecture, how these things, in fact, in the global condition, with consultants that are all over the world, are in fact done. What is the procedure that allows us then to build architecture today under those circumstances? And as always, everything here is absolutely specific of the culture of Vietnam, the architecture of Vietnam, the materials and the way of learning of Vietnam. We'll see, hopefully in a couple of years, I will have pictures of buildings and grounds full of flowers, and then we can have a conclusion. Thank you very much.